What is up, everyone? Welcome to the first episode of the Weekly with Wayne. I am Wayne. Um, Interestingly, this concept, this show, is something that has been in my brain for years. And over the course of time, we've tried different iterations of it. And I have been plotting and prepping for what this show could look like and how I was going to put all the production elements together and all of that. And I woke up this morning and I was like, nah, bump it. Let's just go. And so, what we intend to do here is talk about the intersection of pop culture and politics. If you follow me on any social media, you know that on any given post, you're going to hear me talk about the NBA or Rockefeller Records or, Love is Blind or a new book I'm reading. Or you might hear me talk about the Trump administration or a particular candidate or something that's happening in the geopolitics of the world, right? I believe that pop culture and politics are constantly crossing over. And so that is exactly what the show will be. As you are joining in on the front end of this, every step and every iteration is going to get cleaner and smoother. But today is one of those, it's a lunar New Year's, Chinese New Year. It's Fat Tuesday. It's the beginning of Ramadan. It's just, there's so much energy that I was like, let's go for it. So, welcome to the first episode of the Weekly with Wayne. And today we're going to cover the life of Jesse Jackson, who passed away today. We're going to talk a little bit about the NBA All-Star Weekend and some of the controversy and conversation around that. And I unfortunately have a love for messy TV. And so we're going to talk a little bit about Love is Blind. But first, I want to talk about Jesse Jackson, who passed away this morning. And hearing the news about Jesse Jackson passing away was so, I don't even, monumental. Like, I feel like there have been specific instances where people have passed that it felt like the world shifted a little bit, in part because Jesse Jackson represents for me the living, breathing, or up to this point, living, breathing embodiment of the civil rights movement. One of my big pet peeves as a person who talks a lot about civil rights, who studied civil rights, who has done a lot of trainings and had a lot of conversations about the civil rights movement, is that so much of it was captured in black and white. And the fact that it was captured in black and white, I think, gives people the illusion of believing that the civil rights movement was a long time ago. And I would oftentimes say, hey, here's Ruby Bridges, who was one of the first children to integrate a school, right? We have pictures of the National Guard walking her into school. Like, she is a person who, if you see pictures of Ruby Bridges, she is not very old, right? Or here you have Jesse Jackson, who literally is pictured in Memphis when Dr. King is assassinated, right? Like, this is not some sense of oldness or distance. Like I say all the time, my parents were born the year the king was assassinated. So like it's not this sense of like hundreds of years ago. It's a recent reality. And Jesse Jackson has always represented that for me. And interestingly, we are sitting in this space where we are at the 100th anniversary of Negro History Week, which has become Black History Month. And to be at this 100th anniversary, and during this 100th anniversary, to lose a giant, to lose a person who not only was a part of, a protege of Dr. King, a part of the civil rights movement, and then took on the work that Dr. King left with the Poor People's Campaign, being there in the encampment in DC. And he became famous for this chant, I am somebody. Like, there are videos of him on Sesame Street back in the day, because a lot of folks don't know that Sesame Street like was one of the wokest television shows of all time. It was one of the first children's shows that prominently featured Black children. And in their neighborhood, like Sesame Street is like the hood in New York, right? And so you have this sense where he's standing there with the characters of Sesame Street, chanting with these children, telling them, I am somebody, right? He represents and embodies the bridge, I believe, between the civil rights movement and the modern day. You have, not only is he there for the Poor People's Campaign, there for the Black Empowerment movement, the Black Power movement, he becomes a very vocal opponent of the Reagan administration and runs for president and ultimately finished third. People at first were like, Jesse Jackson go. First of all, this is America. Ain't no Black man ever going to become president. And second of all, Jesse Jackson is not going to become president of the United States. And he finished third the first time he ran for the Democratic nomination, and then finished second the second time he ran. And You should look it up. One of the most impactful pictures I've ever seen is a picture of Jesse Jackson listening to Barack Obama right after Barack Obama has won the presidency. You have this moment where all that Jesse was born into on October 8th, 1941, the world that he was born into, the world that he became a part of as a protege of Dr. King, the world and the work that he continued in the Black Power movement and continuing to go out became realized, fully realized in Barack Obama becoming president of these United States. And so there is a gigantic hole in the universe right now as this man who has meant so much, not only to Black people, but to the plight of the United States, is now no longer with us. I, interestingly, I felt like this was such a full circle moment as well. Is that I had the chance to interview Representative Jonathan Jackson when I was on Capitol Hill last year, the son of Jesse Jackson. And it's so funny how much they sound alike. Some of their mannerisms are the same. And I I had the chance as well to talk to my dad about Jesse Jackson. We always talked about Jesse Jackson as I was growing up, as Jesse Jackson was a prominent figure on historically Black colleges and universities. Both my parents went to Tuskegee University, and he was constantly out, constantly recruiting people to be a part of the push, the Rainbow Coalition, right? Pray until something happens, like moving people into believing in a multi-generational, multiracial campaign to end poverty, which became King's legacy in his latter years. Watching that happen, and then getting the chance to see the next generation as myself now standing in Capitol Hill talking to Representative Jonathan Jackson, it was such an incredible moment to have. So like I said, there's this moment where the generations are bridging. And one of the biggest bridges, like I said, is Barack Obama, who not only is the embodiment of that, but continues that legacy in a way that we just have to admit is just cool. Like Jesse Jackson with the afro and the fist in the air, I am somebody. He is not just revolutionary. He was cool. And then we got Barack Obama, who's also that level of cool. And, we had so many politicians who've come out today talking about their particular love and affinity for the Reverend. Interestingly, Donald Trump, of course, tried to make it about himself and be like, he loved me so much. I've known him for a very long time, frankly, longer than anyone else, because I'm the least racist president you've ever met, frankly. And in the midst of all that, like, I'm constantly reminded that Donald Trump just wishes at his core that he was loved like Barack Obama's loved. Like, he just wishes, he wishes he could walk like that, man. He literally got on stage in front of the entire military brass one time and was like, yeah, I just watch him go down the stairs. And I'm just like, oh, that's so crazy. And it's like, do we have that video? Can we pull that up?
So one thing with Obama, I had zero respect for him as a president, but he would bop down those stairs. I've never seen He'd go down the stairs, wouldn't hold on. I said, it's great. I don't want to do it. I guess I could do it. But eventually, bad things are going to happen. And it only takes once. But he did a lousy job as president.
And so here he is in front of all of his military leaders, and he's like, "Oh man, I just wish I could walk and talk like that guy." And the coolness of President Obama is not just in the way that he walks, but literally being at the All-Star Game weekend. And I mean, he was just shown so much love by all of the different players. I mean, just out there kicking it, right? Like just out there enjoying his time. Him and Michelle, they just look like they're having a great Valentine's Day weekend at the All-Star Game weekend. And like it's they're walking around and they're getting dapped up by players, and it's just he's just so cool, man. And like besides the fact that he's there and is so cool, there was also a lot of controversy and a lot of conversation leading up to this NBA All-Star game, besides the fact that the Obamas were there. And everyone seems to believe that the NBA All-Star game is broken. Now, I personal, local, and immediate believe that there is a conspiracy in the media to protect the legacy of Michael Jordan. And in order to fully protect the legacy of Michael Jordan, they have to pretend as if the NBA is getting worse and worse every year. Now, this is a problem for the NBA because if you are actively walking around talking about the league as if it is now bad and then saying, why are ratings dropping? Because the folks who are covering it are talking negatively, but they're only doing so in order to protect the legacy of the guy that they keep saying is the GOAT against LeBron James, who's been the most important and best basketball player of the 21st century. Even if we don't go into the whole who's better, Michael Jordan or LeBron James, like if we don't go into that, of the 21st century, there has not been a more important basketball player than LeBron James. He got drafted in 2003, and he's been that guy since then. But the fact that there is this concerted effort to ensure that LeBron James is never seen or eclipses Michael Jordan's legacy, not only do they talk down on the game, even though the players today are more skilled, bigger, faster, stronger. Like go watch a game from the 90s and then turn on a game from today and you will see the skill difference is absurd. And I'm not saying that to discount or tear down Michael Jordan. I'm just saying it's the reality. You can use your eyes, right? Cardi B, right? But there's this constant idea of like, oh, it's just not what it used to be. And who's to blame? LeBron. Do you remember the thanks Obama trend, right? When everything, oh, gas is $4. Thanks, Obama. Oh, stub my toe. Thanks, Obama. I feel like the NBA has that with thanks, LeBron. Oh, the dunk contest wasn't very good this year. Thanks, LeBron. We know that you're 432 years old, but if you just would have done the dunk contest, we would have been fine. Thanks, LeBron. Oh, thanks, LeBron. The NBA All-Star game just doesn't have the intensity it used to have. And you know, if you had just taken on Kobe that one time, then it would all be good. And the reality is this: LeBron James, like I said, is the most important and best basketball player of the 21st century. And he's going to retire at some point. And there are people who are making entire careers, Stephen A. Smith, of trashing LeBron James, Skip Bayless. There are people whose entire life centers around the idea of trying to tear that man down, even though he is the best ambassador to basketball that they have seen. And the last time that Michael Jordan played significant basketball was during the Clinton administration. Okay. And so the reality is that there's this effort to blame LeBron for everything. Now, LeBron James isn't perfect, but to pretend like the All-Star game, which was intense, is somehow his fault, undermines reality and puts us in a position where we're not giving people their flowers while they're yet living. I can't help but like draw the parallel between these two ideas, where on the one hand, I was scrolling threads this morning, right? I was watching people as they put out their statements about the Reverend Jesse Jackson. And of course, there were some people who were like, oh, well, he did this one thing this one time and I didn't like that. And I'm like, you waited till today? You waited till today to have something negative to say? Like, in a world built by critique, can we give people their flowers while they're living? In a media space that is built to try to protect the legacy of a man who's doing just fine. He's over. He didn't even think about basketball no more. His racing team just won the Daytona 500. But to protect that, you're not giving LeBron his flowers while he's still alive. And so I just really wish that we would take this moment. That's why I'm glad that Obama was out there. All right. I'm glad that Jesse Jackson got to see Obama become the living fulfillment of all the things that he stands for. And Obama was out there at the All-Star game watching LeBron James, who's the best ambassador. And those three men deserved our flowers. Jesse Jackson deserved our flowers then and deserves them today. Barack Obama deserves our flowers. And so does LeBron. And as a black man, I'm looking at all three of those men who are flawed, who have things that have gone wrong, who have said the wrong things or done the wrong things, recognizing that all three of them have made a significant difference. So I'm just asking, we actually take the time to give folks their flowers while they're yet living. And thanks for coming to my TED Talk on that. The last thing I want to talk about, And I wish I had a better segue for this, but like I said, I'm into messy TV, and maybe the segue is I am somebody. The idea that Jesse Jackson had that I am somebody, that we took pride, like I am black, I am beautiful, is something that is not only necessary for us as we move throughout the world as black folks, but when we don't have it, when we do not have racial self esteem, it shows up in very insidious ways. And with that being the case, Love is Blind, every single season, there are so many people who are on that show who refuse to address the concept of race in their dating profile, in their way that they're interacting in the pods. And then all of a sudden, they're like, why is this becoming a thing out of the pods? Because race matters. Like race matters in relationships. Like homogenous, quote unquote, relationships are easier to navigate because you're supposedly in the same racial space, which makes the relationship between Devontae and Brittany in particular fascinating because Devontae, for all intents and purposes, is a biracial black man. That is what we can see of him. Um, but he very much does not seem to have a lot of black awareness, a lot of black connectivity, and made it abundantly clear that he doesn't talk to or like black women, that he's never dated a black woman before. And he matches with Brittany. Brittany is an Afro Latina woman, but Brittany, his name is Brittany, and has kind of a peppier, more white sounding voice. And so Devontae thought that he was getting a white girl and was shocked when it was Brittany. Now, to be clear, Brittany is a beautiful black Latina woman, gorgeous. So much so that another one of the fiancés in the show, spoiler alert, tried to roll up on her and be like, I mean, you're more my type. Right? Like, I kind of like your features. I kind of like your curves. Whereas Devontae, I'm sure Brittany thought that Devontae was going to be Devontae, right? Like if I told you, oh, my boy Devontae, you know, you're not over there like, oh, Devontae. You're like Devontae, right? With an A at the end of it. And so to be in the space where you're a Devontae and you're not even in touch with your blackness, respectfully, as far as we've seen, in touch with your blackness, almost shunning your blackness and being like, I don't even want to be associated with it. Brittany thought that she was getting, just a nerdy black dude, probably taller. And what she got was a dude who doesn't really want to be black. And that has come to a head, even in the clip that was released about the episodes coming up. And she's like, I feel like you don't touch me. You don't look at me. You don't compliment me. And he's like, well, I feel like if I do it now, it's because I'm being forced to. Why would you be forced to, Devontae? Why would you be forced to? Now, I could just belabor the point here. We got to get off of the show in a few minutes. I could belabor the point around the idea of like, if I'm in a relationship and the person that I'm in a relationship with says, I like this, I very well can do the thing that they like because they taught me. It is okay to teach people what you want, what you like. Like I tell you what I want, what I really want. So tell me what you want, what you really, really want. Like I having someone do that is a powerful thing. And then I can learn to do that because I love them. This is the spot I think people miss it. They think, okay, now it's not genuine. But if someone tells me how to love them and I do that thing, it is the best way to show them I love them. Love is not altruistic purely. Love is in response. If someone says, I really appreciate it when you do X, and I do X for them, that is my way of saying, I heard you and your feelings and the things that you want matter so much to me that I'm willing to do them because I love you, because I want to be with you. But some dudes be like, no, you're just forcing me, which is selfish and tells me you don't want to be in a relationship or be in a relationship with that person. But I digress. We're going to see in the rest of the season. I'm sure I'm going to cover this more. But I really wish that folks would develop a little bit higher racial self-esteem. And I say this as a black child who grew up in the suburbs, went to a private high school, private colleges, right? I was the chocolate drop in the vanilla factory. And I still developed a very high racial self-esteem because I am somebody. To me, there's no excuse for being in a space where you just don't. And so I think that there's a lot that we're going to learn about Devontae. There's also some rumors that he has been very explicit in his anti-blackness on the other side of being in on the show, and we'll explore that more, I'm sure, in another one of these conversations. But the juxtaposition and the difference between sitting in that space and the thing that Jesse Jackson preached, the thing that Barack Obama became the embodiment of, the thing that LeBron James carries with him every day is this idea of knowing who you are and being comfortable with it. So, like I said, I love messy TV. I'm going to cover it as often as we get back to it. And I think that in the spaces that we're sitting in, I would love that we could learn from these messy TV spaces, but also recognize the reason why folks end up in these shows in the first place is because sometimes they are too messy. So, I gotta figure out how I want to land this plane. Thank you for coming to this very, very experimental version of the show. I just learned a lot in 21 minutes of how I do and do not want to do this. And also just learned a couple things from a production standpoint. And shout out to my producer, Hannah Lynn. But learned a lot just in these 21 minutes. And so I am glad, if for nothing else, we got this on the record, which is another one of the shows. For the Record is another one of the shows that we're working on that we'll be coming out with. We'll take a record off the wall and rate it in a lot of different ways. But gosh, I just learned a lot. So thank you so much for coming to my TED Talk. And I will see you next week on The Weekly with Wayne. Peace.